What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to bring you guys my review of Alan Wake 2. Before we get too far, of course, I want to shout out that Remedy/Epic gave me a code for this game, so just want to shout them out and say thank you for that. And obviously, as we've said before, that doesn't change anything that I'm about to say about this game. So I just beat it last night, put about 21 hours into the game. I still have plenty of more things to find in the world. The Dark Place can be a very difficult place to maneuver and to locate everything, so this game could easily go on further than 21 hours, but I beat it, and I do believe it's my game of the year. I had such a blast playing this game, and granted, I do think it's for a very specific audience. I will say that. I will say that because you're seeing a lot of praise, or at least I'm seeing a lot of people echo it on Twitter and on YouTube about how great this game is. I think this is a very good survival horror game. I kind of have some updates to talk about that part of the game versus even what I said in my early impressions, the horror element of it, the gunplay, just how the game kind of operates. But I will be honest, if you're not into these wacky, I've compared Sam Lake to Tetsuya Nomura of Kingdom Hearts. In fact, Sam Lake liked my tweet saying that just yesterday. So I really believe these are two very similar kinds of people where the stories are insane, and they're convoluted at times just to be convoluted. I honestly believe so, but they're a blast, and I love the lore and story of Kingdom Hearts, and I love the lore and story of Alan Wake. I don't understand it all, but I try my best to get as much as I can, and I really love it, and that is such a fundamental part of Alan Wake 2 that if you're not into that, or you have no interest, or you didn't like, say, the story or lore of the first game, well, this game is that on steroids, and just taking it to a brand new level. So I just kind of want to make that known. I think that's pretty honest. I don't know if everybody's kind of being open with that part of it. I think a massive amount of enjoyment of this game comes from the lore and the story and the characters, and if you're not into that, this game is still a pretty good survival horror game. I think you can maybe have fun with it, but you're just going to have no clue of what's going on, which maybe actually that is how some people play Kingdom Hearts games. They play it for the Disney worlds. They don't know what the heck the story is, and they still kind of enjoy it for the gameplay and other elements. So let's start there. Let's start with the gameplay and that stuff. I liked it a lot, and I liked it the more I played it. In terms of the horror, I'd like to take back what I said in the past. The game is scary. The game is maybe not the scariest game I've ever played in my life, but I would actually put it in like the top tier of horror games that I've played, and it's just because, well, number one, it's unsettling at times. There's some stuff that goes on in this game that's pretty unsettling. And number two, it just knows how to get you. There are, I mentioned it. I don't want to spoil it, but it's very, like, everything in this game technically is a spoiler. So we're going to spoil small things, but obviously not, like, the main parts of the game. There's a lot that this game does with kind of like the world's bleeding, right? Going into the overlaps and going into the dark place and kind of back and forth, right? And when you're doing this, characters like Mr. Scratch or just enemies in general, the big boss kind of at the end of the level, it'll kind of like haunt you. And that's without going too specific as to what's actually going on. And it does this by just kind of flashing at you. And I feel like it does it perfectly because visually it really stands out. And I don't actually think you can get these scares if the visuals weren't so good or the technology wasn't so good. Because like I said, I call it like this bleeding effect. I don't know if that's the right terminology, but where like the environment kind of bleeds into another and it kind of changes in a flash without loading, without anything. And that kind of technology, is relatively new. That technology Remedy is very good at. So what I'm kind of getting at is because of that, these flickering effects and things kind of changing on a dime or, whatever it might be, it's possible now, and they use it for horror purposes. They really do. They make Mr. Scratch. You thought Mr. Scratch was kind of different. He really was never all that scary, at least in my opinion. In the first game, he's not in it much, but in American Nightmare, he is terrifying, and it's because they really lean into this survival horror, genre that they're in now. He works so well as a villain in that, just to share, one kind of example. So I loved it. I think the horror element, it got me. I jumped multiple times throughout this game. You kind of get used to like when it's going to do it, but sometimes you'll open a door. You'll go to open a door and it'll just shock you. And obviously the volume settings, right? So like it's not super loud when they're talking and things, but then when they do the jump scares, they raise the volume up, so you can never really prepare for it. So I think they did a fantastic job there. I think the combat, I'm still going to say it's the weakest part of the game. I think that's fair. Even if you really like the combat, for how much I've been talking about how much I like the lore and the story, I do think it's the weakest part. It's not bad. I'm not a huge fan of the dodging. However, I kind of got better and better at it as the game goes on. Not doing like these perfect dodges, but you actually get a trophy like if you dodge at the last second of like an enemy attacking you, and that happens quite often. I was doing that quite often. So you kind of get in like a groove, and you kind of learn, okay, dodge like right at the end, and then you can fire off a couple shots. But sometimes, like, some of the enemies are very, very annoying. There are like upgrades in terms of like your weaponry or even reloading, but I didn't really go for that so much. So like my reload was terribly slow, and there's just some, I don't know, some small subtleties that made the combat kind of frustrating at times. Enemies that I thought were a little unfair, or when they kind of group up on you. There was a couple moments with Alan specifically in the dark place where there's the shadows, and oftentimes some of the shadows are fake, right? Like you can walk through them and they won't attack you. But there's some sections towards the end where you'll have, and I had like 5 to 7 enemies chasing me for like a small duration of time. It's like you can't fight those, and maybe you're not supposed to. Maybe you're supposed to run away, but there's some parts to the game where the combat was frustrating, and it's the only thing in the game that is frustrating. So that's hence why I say, it's the weakest part, but it's still good. I think as a survival horror game, they do it right, where there are not that many enemies. They scatter them throughout. They make them scary. They make it so that you really have to keep track of your inventory, and you might run out of flashlight, batteries. You might run out of this or that. So I think they handled it well. There was just some smaller things like with the camera, or enemies kind of moving around too quickly, and like sometimes the camera would get confused where the enemy was moving. Small things like that, but overall, function pretty well. And then the last thing in terms of like the gameplay concepts I want to focus on is the 2 unique things, or I guess 1 unique thing per each character. So Saga with the mind place, and then Alan with changing the scenes. And I thought they were just so good. I actually thought, and I was kind of afraid, that I'd be really bad at Saga's board, her investigation board, because you look at it and you say, how in God's name does this work? Like, I don't think they ever had done a good job leading into the game at showing like it being easy. And maybe it's not supposed to be easy, but you get the hang of it extremely quickly, and it's really fun. The game does it for you. It asks questions and it kind of sets things up, but you have to look at your clues that you find throughout the world, and you don't have to find all of them to satisfy the objective, but you can find all the clues in the entire game, and that only enhances things. You can find all the manuscripts in the entire game. That only enhances things, and so that's really fun to do. But the investigation board is really awesome. Profiling people as Saga is super, super cool. That is a great, great part of the game, and that ties more with her lore that we won't go into, but that was a lot of fun. And then Alan, his, a similar ability is being able to investigate things, seeing echoes in the world, which is a lot of fun to see that play out. And then he gets to change certain scenes. And again, this is what I call that bleeding effect thing, but this is just switching the scene on a dime, right? You'll hear his typewriter, you'll see it kind of in like a flash, and the entire environment will shift. Sometimes it doesn't shift all that much, but sometimes it shifts entirely. So I thought that was incredibly, incredibly cool, because there's just new things to see with each scene replacement, and it's just a blast. Those 2 individual abilities are super, super cool, and you use them a lot. So they're constantly being used, and they're awesome to use. And then there's the lore and story. And look, I'm not going to go too far, because that would obviously go very deep into spoilers and stuff, but what this game does is unlike, and this is why I compare Sam Lake to Tetsuya Nomura, because there's not a lot of Kingdom Hearts out there, okay? And like it or hate it, like or hate the crazy convoluted lore, there's not a lot of them. There's none in Alan Wake. You can't find me another game that does Alan Wake 2 like Alan Wake 2 does. That's why it's my game of the year. It's really good, and it's also so unique. And I prefer kind of, unique experiences. One of my favorite games that maybe was my game of the year before this was Hi-Fi Rush, another game that some of it's been done before, but overall, that's pretty new as well. So I do like the kind of odd things and trying things that are new. The blend that this game does between live action and gameplay, I was never really a fan. Like Quantum Break, that's actually what kept me away from it, the live action stuff. And I don't really know what changed in me, but, like leading into Control, I kind of accepted it a little bit more. And, there's other games, obviously, that maybe are just completely live action games. But Alan Wake, the blend that it does between you watching something happening and you're the character and you're watching like the actor of, say, Alan do something, it's insane. And no other game can say that it does it. There's a specific chapter that I'm not going to show because I don't want to spoil it, but there's chapter 4, Alan's 4th chapter, is maybe, no, it is. It's the most fun I've had in a game in years. It's such an incredible chapter, 20, 30, however long it might be. Trust me, you've never seen anything like it. Chapter 4. Be ready for it if you haven't played, or watch it, if you're interested in seeing what specifically I'm talking about. And like, I was just laughing. I was like, this is just incredible. Like, I was saying it out loud. This is just incredible. And some of the twists, like, I'm not going to say what the twists are, but there's some stuff that they do deeper into the game. The ending is insane. The ending, like, it's truly unbelievable. And I saw people say that. I saw that the ending is like a trip, like what a trippy ending. And I saw that, but I didn't know what the ending was. And those people were right, because the ending of this game is unbelievable. There is a twist a little bit before the ending that I kind of like was trying to figure out as the game was going on, but I love the twist. I love the ending. There's just so much story and character and lore-wise that they do. And look, again, like I think I said this before, I'm a little biased. I was going into this game loving the stuff they did with the first game. I wanted more of that in this one. That's what I wanted, fully. And they gave it to me. They gave me truly a wackier version of the first game that was on steroids and just times 10, and that's what I wanted. So I cannot wait for the future. I want those DLCs. I want Alan Wake 3. Keep going. Just keep, Sam Lake, if you're listening, Remedy, you just keep on going. Trust that we like this wacky stuff. And God, I've been saying this. I pray that this game sells well, because, we know the cult kind of status of Alan Wake, and I think so many people are saying so many good things about it. It's being viewed a lot on Twitch. Like, hopefully its weirdness rubs off on people and they give it a try. I just want them to keep going. I don't want it to be, well, we're trying wacky different things, but like nobody's buying it. Please, please, for the love of God, support this game if you want. Obviously, it's up to you, but I really loved it. It gave me everything that I wanted from the story and lore, and then it was just a really solid game on top of that, and that makes it, to me, my game of the year. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.